Say greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Emmy here from Canada. Hi, Emmy.
Hi.
Hello. And Emmy's going to share a dream with us as per my usual process. I'm just going to sit and listen quietly. Just going to go through it kind of beginning to end chronologically. And then we'll go through it again, and then we'll try to figure out what's happening. So I'm ready when you are.
All right. So the dream starts off in a facsimile of my neighborhood that I live in real life. And I'm rolling down it. I'm actually not sure what I'm rolling down on and on. It's probably some like scooter or skateboard or something, but I don't really ride any of those things. And I'm just rolling down the street. And it's hot and dry. The sun's out. There aren't that many people around, but they're kind of just there on their lawn. There's some random kids and they're kind of bothering me. And I'm just out there. And I'm watching the people. And I'm going up to the shops, and it's nighttime. And I'm hungry, so there's a lot of restaurants, but I just kind of walk around to them. It's a little cold outside, it's gotten dark, and I would like something greasy, but kind of healthy. There's not really that many options, so I end up kind of just walking by and going into this little tiny shop, of which I've been to before. And I get like a little wrap, and I'm on my way. And I go to the woods. And I'm only there for a little while because the woods is just like this little path that leads to like this field. And it's just this thing that happens. But that part of the dream wasn't very long or very notable, but it kind of moves on to a different part of the dream where something much more distinct happens. And this part of the dream occurs in the location of my dreams. It's kind of like the place where I work. It's like this big building. I don't work there anymore, but and it doesn't look like it really. It's just like a representative of something like that, and representative of several other types of locations like that. So it's a very big building, and sometimes it's a hospital, sometimes it's a school. Sometimes it's where I work. Sometimes it's all of those things. There's a mine and garage in the bottom of it. Like there's a garage and like a mine that goes all the way down, which I go into later in the dream, but I'll get to that. But so I'm working. Not much is happening. You know, there's empty rooms. I'm cleaning things up and checking out the theater and whatever, but what actually happens, like what kicks off in the dream at this point, is that I learn that my friend is in the hospital. To clarify, this is a mental hospital, and I have been institutionalized, so it's definitely relevant to my real life, as well as my friend. She's like, well, she was my friend, and she's bipolar, so she's been institutionalized. But the plan was that I was gonna go in. Like sometimes I'm working in this hospital, but it's not like the case at this point. But I was just gonna go in, like go through triage, go through the bag, and just kind of pretend to be a patient. It was a little weird because there's already a room set up for me there, and I was just there. I made it in. I snuck in, and I was like, wow, that was really easy for some reason. And I got distracted when I was in there because I started to get confused between that location and the other location, the family house. And what was happening was that I lost my nice coloring utensils. I lost my, what are they called? Prismacolor. I lost my Prismacolor coloring pencils, and somebody friggin' replaced them with Crayola. And I was like, what is this? Who would do such a thing? Honestly, people used to do shit like that to me when I was in school, so maybe it's a memory. But I was just kind of going around and looking under their beds and getting distracted. And I never really got a chance to leave. But oh Jesus, sorry. I got spooked by something, and I never really got a chance to leave, even though I was trying to plan my escape, like, you know, just watching the nurses and just being there. I wasn't in really any particular rush, and I didn't find my friend. I didn't do anything. All I looked for was my pencil leads, and but yeah, that scenery kind of changed the family home. And this is kind of a real place. It's kind of connected to the wilds. It's definitely distorted in my dreams. It's kind of a real place, like connected to an actual real place in the real world, but it's different. And some of my family was there. Obviously, not my real life family, just like whatever my dream self decided what's gonna be my family in my dream. Like it just like randomly generated family. um, and we were just there, just like dealing with mundane stuff. Like shit was just happening. Nothing really worth, except for the fact that we were going in and out of the house, and um, I accidentally locked one of my baby cousins out of the house, and they disappeared. And this happened in a dream before this too. So this is kind of like an element of recurrence because they had two kids and I accidentally lost one of them and then I lost the other one. So they weren't very happy with me. But that was in an earlier dream. But then they just had like one missing kid and the other kid went missing too. So I spent like a lot of that dream outside the house. Actually, the funny thing is with that dream, I did spend a lot of time outside the house looking around at a garden, which sometimes happens in my dreams. I get confused over the garden there and the garden here, but it's a common thing that happens. I'll just go out and, fix a fence. There'll be dogs sometimes. In that dream particularly, there is a dog that was kind of like a black dog. It's like I just had a dog that died like a few months ago, so he's been kind of showing up in my dreams a little bit here and there. He gets lost sometimes too, but he was there. And another dog. We're kind of just hanging out. And yeah, we went to the store after that. Ever since coronavirus, like there's always been stores in my dreams, but ever since coronavirus, it was actually only a few weeks ago that it finally got like imprinted into my dream brain that I need to wear a mask when I go into stores. So a lot of the time I spent in the store, which is like it's one store in my brain because I often go to a store in my dreams, like as part of the thing, but it's usually different. So this kind of store was like a department store, definitely. They had some food, but also like a weird amount of construction stuff. I don't know, like a Home Depot, Walmart kind of deal, but more food. And I just spent the entire dream like trying to just walking around, trying to get food and stuff. I spend a lot of time doing that mundane stuff when I'm in there. And actually, I think I might have been looking for a rug and a vacuum cleaner and some snacks, like some chips and stuff. And then there was a little bit of time in the school, not much. And weirdly enough, like I went down into the mines and there was a theater down there in that game. And it was just kind of bathed in red, and there wasn't much going down there. It was just like a small snippet of the dream, and there was just a waterfall, and the person that was with me grabbed a bucket and filled it up with water, and that's all I remember out of that. And I think that's most of what I remember out of that dream. But I could remember definitely other specifics, but that's the gist of it.
Okay, that's a lot of great details.
Yeah, they usually hash out pretty long in my perspective.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of imagery and experience to describe. So that's perfectly fine. I mean, you've seen some of my videos go an hour. It's a very short dream. We turn it into a rather long conversation for the length of the dream, and then sometimes it'll go 2.5 hours because there's a lot of details, and we kind of want to give everything a thorough examination. And then I ask a bunch of questions that are either relevant or not, and we'll find out. So yeah, I call it. People who watch these videos are probably sick of hearing it. I call it rattling doorknobs. I rattle a doorknob; it either comes open or it doesn't. If it comes open, great, we go in. If it doesn't, we go down to the next door. No worries. So
that's a nice way to put it.
Say again.
That's a nice way to put it.
Oh, thank you.
I think I'll start telling people that because I like asking people weird questions, and they're like, "Why the fuck would you want to know that?" It's like I don't know.
Just rattling a doorknob. I'm curious. It's a way of expressing curiosity. I'm curious. Don't worry about it. It's all you could say. Just knocking. You don't have to let me in. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I love metaphors and examples, analogies. That's sometimes I think that's the only way to understand life. Because how the hell are we supposed to explain anything unless we can refer to something else and say, it's kind of like this? Does that make sense? Yeah.
This is true. This is
Mm.
true.
Okay, so we got through, basically that's like phase one. Where did this process come from? I don't even know. This is just what made sense to me as I started putting things together. Like I got to listen first, and then I got questions, and then we try and put it together, kind of bing, bang, boom. So my second phase is, asking questions, and I want to go through it again in a little bit more detail, kind of starting at the beginning. And so you said you were in a neighborhood that was recognizably your neighborhood. You had the sense that you were in that environment.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of funny because it it often has a very similar setup. Like there will be my neighborhood, but even though I'm not sure of the proximity between these places, my dream kind of like makes up for the distance. So there's like my neighborhood, I don't know, it's hot and dry. And sometimes there's things are just where they want to be whenever. But there's always
True.
this path that kind of goes from there to to this field place, kind of in my brain. This
Okay.
happened a few times, and that
Sure.
field's a kind of funny place because it often has festivals and stuff and people. But
Hmm. Well, in this particular instance of the dream, I was gonna. So you say it was recognizably your neighborhood, and I was gonna ask what were the elements you saw that allowed you to distinctly say, "Oh yeah, I know where I am because of these things." What is it you saw or
um,
felt?
it's because of the street I was on. Now there wasn't any like it probably looked completely different, but besides for the street, there's like a street and then a street bending off of that that's kind of similar to mine. So I was like, "Yep, this is that," and I just had that sensation.
Okay.
I
And
mean,
sometimes that's the
yeah,
case. It's like you can't pick out any particular features, but you have this feeling that it is a place and
yeah.
specifically just that distinct impression. This is my neighborhood. So you're
Oh, and I
coming.
mean, my house was there. I
Okay.
guess I left my house. I guess I was in my house at the start of it. You know what? And I might have even gone through my garden before I left, or I might have done it when I came back because I definitely went through the garden at the side of my house, and there were like pear trees in there and lots of spider webs. But like, it wasn't anything crazy. It was just like probably what I would envision having if I had a nice garden. Although some of the plants were dying, it was honestly just kind of average.
Okay.
But there were fruit trees.
Was there fruit on the trees?
Yeah, there's like a little bit of fruit on the trees, but they were kind of struggling, you know? It's just like, but it was also summer, so things were like, I don't know.
Yeah, you
And it's
described it being kind of summertime hot.
the thing is, things don't ripen here, so I feel like it was like really along the lines of it being like August, and it's hot, but since none of the plants are acclimated to it, and the season's not very long, they just get really sad and droop because they don't know what's going on. It was
Gotcha.
kind of like that.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. And then you had this sensation or feeling that you were rolling on something. There was some vehicle you were riding, or like
Yeah,
you don't have the experience of walking. You were moving. Can you describe that a little bit more?
I was just cruising down the street on my two legs on probably a skateboard or a scooter or something like that. Like it definitely wasn't rollerblades and it wasn't a bicycle, but I was just cruising. Like
Yeah.
imagine if you're just standing still but rolling. It's something like that. Probably a scooter.
Yeah. Kind of the sense of moving without walking, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Did
You
you
know
have a
what? Maybe I
sense,
rode it back to my house. I don't know,
possibly?
instead of just like going to the store
Did
to
you
store bought
have?
because I'm like, what?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just thinking about like what would I have even done with that scooter? But yeah, continue.
Sometimes those things just disappear when they're no longer needed. You put it down, poof, gone. You don't see it anymore. My
True.
thought was, or my intuitive question to ask was, did it feel like you were in control of this vehicle, or you were being carried forward towards a destination? Did you have any
Kind
sense
of
of steering?
neither. I was kind of just there. And I wasn't like really necessarily being driven to anywhere in particular. It was kind of just like cruising. Like it's hard to explain. I wasn't really. I was just kind of standing there. So I guess probably being driven more so than me being in control. But I didn't feel
Okay,
out of control either.
sure, sure. Not a sense of being carried someplace, say you didn't want to go, or being pushed in a direction. More of just Yeah, almost like it was just happening. Like you weren't
Yeah.
steering is the idea. Like you didn't imagine yourself kicking to propel forward. It was just you were being carried in a way.
You know what? I might have kicked it forward.
Maybe.
I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough.
But I was definitely focused on other things. Like I was just looking at the houses and like looking at the people on the front step and they were doing shit. Like sure somebody had a sprinkler on, somebody was doing something. It wasn't there definitely weren't as many children as there usually are, but there were definitely children. More adults than there usually are. And I'll say it was really sunny. Like it's not. It would have been a very very unusual day for here because it was like not a cloud in the sky. It was just dry and sunny. It was just yeah. That's like the thing I remember most about it was the weather and how that felt because that's weird, you know.
And then that's unusual for your real life experience in that neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So you're going down the street and you see people, and just to get an idea of kind of what was going on around you, you saw some people were watering their grass. What were some of the other people doing?
And they were just kind of like I didn't really pay too much attention to what exactly they were doing, but they're
Sure.
kind of just doing like the normal kind of like out in front of our house, chilling, taking care of chores, letting the kids out, do whatever, dog, I don't know, like things like that kind of thing.
You had the
So
sense
there
that
weren't that many people walking on the street.
you had the sense that they were just going through maybe their routine activities of life around you,
Yeah.
independent of you.
Yeah.
Okay. And you did mention saying there were random kids out and they bothered you. What was your interaction with kids in that sense? What did they?
It's honestly, it's probably just like in real life, there are kids that like just they pop out in front of my house and they stare at me and sometimes yell at me. So I was just seeing them there in my dream, and I was like, ugh, I'm leaving. I'm not gonna like look at them or talk to them. But that was like that's pretty normal for real life too. So it was a very mundane feature.
Okay. So you just bypassed them as well on your way to your destination.
Yeah.
And then there was that segment of the dream. You're traveling from your home during the daylight, and then bam, it's suddenly nighttime.
I don't see. That's a difficult thing because it was nighttime in the next portion of the dream when I was trying to get food, but I'm not sure. It didn't like suddenly change to nighttime, if you know what I mean. It felt like I was living through the day.
Okay.
But it
But you don't actually have imagery or connective narrative between those two events?
I'm thinking that going on the path, like in the woods, may have been what was between that, like kind of in dusk. Like in a dusk area, like going to the shops.
That might have been a little out of sequence in the original description.
Yeah.
Do you have a memory of coming from the neighborhood looking area and suddenly kind of turning a corner or the imagery becoming this path through the woods? Now that you think about it?
Not really. It was kind of just there, like it always is. Like it was like, oh, there's a path. I don't even really remember getting to it specifically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's very common. There's a lot of these jump cuts in dreams where whatever imagery or we're processing at that moment, it just changes because you've had the experience of thinking about that in your unconscious experience. And next, what is it? The Alice in Wonderland, Mad Hatter's teapot, fresh cup, move down, they all change places. And then dreams are very much like that. So what can you tell me a little bit about this particular experience of the path through the woods? Was it a very narrow path with trees crowding? Was it a wide path with grass and then trees in the distance? Narrow path?
it's a path I walk a lot in these recurring dreams, and especially this time of year because I get real excited about picking mushrooms. I'm always like, "Are there mushrooms on this path?" And I'm like looking for them, and they usually are there.
Yeah. So you say it's a very narrow path. It's just like dirt, a worn dirt path through the grass, sort of.
Dirt and or gravel,
Okay.
like it's like kind of rocky.
Okay. Now, is there grass? Because there's different kinds of paths through the woods. There's like if the trees are really thick and heavy and tall, then there's no grass, and it's just kind of a worn path through the dirt between trees. How would you describe the density of the forest around you?
So there's definitely like grass and bushes like along the edges of the path, but the trees are like they are crowding it from above, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
they're growing like up and over. The funny thing about the path is that it goes to somewhere that's kind of like um wait, I feel like I'm forgetting a massive portion of this dream because I'm remembering now that this path like it kind of takes you up on this hill, kind of this like cliff, and there's like big buildings on the side of it. But you go and then it's like the ocean. And it's not something that it's not like a path that exists in real life, but it's definitely a common feature of our terrain. Like to have I don't even know what you would technically call that, but basically yeah, it goes up onto the cliff that goes out into the ocean. But you don't really see that when you're in the path because you can't because it's trees. But yeah, it's
Hmm.
basically like
Okay. And so now that you're maybe getting more of those images coming back to you, which is actually part of the whole purpose of going through this a second time in greater detail, it actually opens up these previously glossed over small details. Did you have a sense of following that path to the cliff and then to the buildings, and that's where the restaurant was, and it was nighttime?
well, that's the funny thing. Um, I don't. I feel like I remember coming to the shops from a different direction than I would have been coming from. So, hmm.
Maybe, maybe not. Again, this is the rattling doorknob thing. If I ask a question, you don't have an answer, you can just say, I don't know. That's perfectly fine.
I'm thinking, I'm thinking I went down and like went through the city because I feel like I remember going through the city once in that dream. So maybe I just went back and then went through the shops. But yeah, it was nighttime and the shops were kind of like, um, I mean, there were big shops. It's very similar to the way they are in some of my dreams, but they're kind of like strip malls, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Like with those, um, and the place I went into is kind of one of those places with one of those dirty old like white light up signs that like those like plastic panels.
Okay.
And yeah,
Do you now that
I
you mentioned a sign, did you see what was written on it? Can you see it in your mind or
no,
nah?
definitely not. It would have just been like some basic something
But you knew it was a
like
place for food and that's what you were looking for.
yeah, um, yeah. It's like
Okay.
this little like restaurant. It's just kind of like a tiny, tiny little place with like four tables and like um, just like a few like four tables for eating and just like one of those plexiglass things. And it's something I've definitely been to before in my dreams, but maybe only like once or twice, like in that specific type of shop that you know got conjured up like that shop. I don't know the name of it, but it's a
Okay.
thing. And I mean, it doesn't always sell the same stuff. It's just like I know I walk in and I'm like, okay, so this is that tiny little restaurant that I came to before.
Okay. Maybe relevant. We'll see. And what you got there was a wrap, you said? Kind of like a wrap.
Yeah, just like a little wrap.
Do you
It
remember
was
what
like
it was? Yeah.
no, it was really just it was probably just really what I could find that would be the cheapest and the most like the least unhealthy kind of thing. And it wasn't really excited about it at all. I was just like, I kind of wish I made food at home, but I wasn't gonna be at that, and I wasn't gonna buy junk food either. Yeah, actually, a lot of the shops weren't open. I remember walking a lot, like walking a long time, and just being like, I don't want to walk all the way over there to that tiny shop. It's the only place I want to eat.
Okay. Sorry, I write so slow sometimes. So you got a little wrap, and you describe it as a what you could find, the cheapest thing, not entirely satisfying, kind of wishing you'd made some food at home. And then, do you remember eating it?
Not really, honestly. Like I think I did eat it, but I don't really remember eating it.
Okay, you might have just gotten the sense later in the dream that you were done with that meal. You put it in the past.
Yeah,
The eating of it was not something you focused on or remember. That's fine.
yeah.
Um,
It's mostly about getting it.
yeah, for sure. No, that's I got that.
It was mostly about being hungry. And my dream didn't seem so concerned over whether I was full or not.
Very, very much. Um, okay, now this is the where it transitioned into the next part of the dream where you were approaching the large building.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
and in this,
Oh, I just realized I'm forgetting a huge. There's a huge part of this dream that I'm forgetting.
you're starting to get a tickle of
No,
some
maybe I'm
images coming
not.
back.
I could just be getting confused
It's
on that one.
possible.
I'll put a pin in that one. But I definitely did arrive at that building. But
Yeah, we can come back around. So I'll put a little carrot in here saying more. I don't know. We'll find out. Yeah, it's either relevant or it's not, and maybe you forgot it for a reason, or maybe it'll come back to you. But yeah, we can just move forward for now. It's because I think this building also a relevant, important place, and you described it kind of as representative of a type of building more than being a
yes,
specific
yes,
building. Um,
yeah. I mean, sometimes it even kind of like sometimes on the very rare occasion it's even an airport. Like,
okay,
but not. It's only happened like once or twice.
but then in this specific dream, it seemed like a hospital, very specifically.
For the most part,
Okay.
yeah.
And
And I
this
entered
was
it.
the same building that you went into to try and rescue your friend you snuck into.
Yeah, or at least see what was going on. Like, the funny thing was about it is that I I would have entered through like the side or back door. So like when it's a hospital, um, usually it's a little different. Unless I'm working at the hospital, like I entered through the side through like kind of like this um warm toned area, like a brick area, red door kind
Sure.
of deal. Like I walk in and I just pretend to be a patient. But I usually would have been to enter that place. Usually I would have gone through this big garage area and up into this kind of like front space, which I did actually at some point of the dream because I was working there, but it was
Yeah.
like it was completely just like a little tidbit of mundane.
So to
Yes,
get
because
it
it's like
to get it straight in my mind, at this point in the dream, are you approaching to perform the rescue, or does it feel like you're going in through the garage entrance to work?
so I was like I went through, but then I like it just kind of like switched to me going through again, but like through a different way because I was there. But my brain was like, no, we're doing it different this time, kind
So
of thing.
yeah,
Like you know what I mean?
yeah, chronologically, the first time you approached this building, you came at it from the employee entrance, kind of through the garage down below.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically, yeah. And the garage is just a funny, funny place.
Yeah, and this is you would describe it as it's a parking garage underneath a kind of underneath a building or adjacent to the building.
It is, yes.
Okay.
However, my brain makes a connection between this garage and the other garage. And the funny thing is, like, I work in this building and I do stuff, but also sometimes I work in the garage, but like as a garage person. And then, of course, like underneath the garage, there are the mines, and it's like a hole in the floor. And it's all like, yeah.
That's
I
what
didn't
I
really
wanted
fuck
to.
with that at this point in the dream.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to sort out a little bit. Is this the first time you saw the mine? This is the location of the mine?
Mm-mm.
No, you didn't see
No.
that until later.
Yes.
Okay, that's
In
fine.
this dream, because I've definitely like I've seen the mine before, so it was something that was like familiar to me. So that when I was going down to it the second time, I was just kind of like, oh, well, I'm going down the mine. You know what I mean? Because I like
Yeah,
it's but it's not. It was actually a lot less significant in this dream than it was in a lot of other dreams, because sometimes
sure.
a lot of things take place in those mines and those sorts of tunnels, because there's like a lot of like hatches and rocks and like things going wrong, and it's hard to get through, and it's a whole deal. But I didn't have to do a lot of that in this dream.
Sure. So this was where you were approaching. You came in through the typical, say, garage entrance. You didn't see anything to do with the mine, so it was absent temporarily during this section of the dream. And what you were doing was going to work. And you did describe that you're at work and you're working. You're cleaning empty rooms. Was kind of the purpose for being there. It's the next thing
Yeah.
that happened. Okay.
The funny thing with the cleaning the empty rooms is that's a little bit chaotic. Like the empty rooms are not. It's usually a problem. Now I don't remember much about it, but usually there's just like stuff flying everywhere, and it's just not so good. Like the physics got weird in those rooms, and I'm usually like with a few coworkers, and they're not very nice to me. And it's just like not. It's not a great thing. I didn't do much of that. It was just like a little bit.
Okay. You got kind of a sense of weird physics and mean coworkers.
Yeah. And I mean, there's these huge changing rooms in my dream and then work, like at my dream. So I usually, I usually spend a considerable amount of time just not doing my job and just like going into the change room and like pretending I'm not there. Or
Is that what happened this time during this segment of the dream, or you were actually working with the coworkers, but it wasn't? I don't know
that
why the
might have
word.
been it. I might have just been like, I'm leaving. Because that's usually what happens. Like I'm not particularly interested. I'm usually getting chastised because I'm not really paying attention to what's going on when I'm there. I'm just kind of like not enthused
So
and not.
maybe you were having that experience of weird physics, things flying everywhere, mean or being chastised by coworkers, and then feeling I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. You took off.
Kind of. It's more like I often stay in the building, which is what happened this time too,
Sure.
kind of because I went through the hospital entrance. I was still there, but it was like usually I don't leave necessarily, but I leave what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, like
Okay.
I'll usually change into another outfit and go upstairs and just kind of like mill around, see what's going on, and that's usually where a lot of this stuff happens, like with the school and the stuff.
Okay.
However, in that dream, there is like in that space. Sometimes there's like a swimming area, and that gets crazy sometimes, but it's not.
But how about in this specific instance? I'm trying to get kind of a narrative
Yeah,
picture of what happened next in this dream. So you're with the coworkers and it's not going well, and you decide I don't like this, and so you leave to another place. Do you remember kind of what happened that next chronological step?
um, yeah. Well, that's kind of where I wanted to go in and like help my friends. It's kind of like, well, I'm
Okay.
just gonna deal with this now.
So
But
the
yeah, you know what? I probably did leave this time because I did have to leave to come back. But I didn't. I
okay.
didn't really leave. Like I went outside and went through the other door.
Okay. Let me
I
change papers here.
I usually
So
spend the time like I instead of leaving, I'm usually hiding from my coworkers, like trying not to let them notice me. It's usually not a problem, but it's a thing. It's definitely a thing.
yeah. So that's the part of the dream where you left what you were doing for whatever reason, and actually then kind of left the building to re-enter as an undercover, as a patient, but for an undercover purpose.
Yeah,
And the
I
purpose
came in
was to
behind a
rescue a
family, like an
friend.
old lady.
Say again?
Yeah, I came behind like a little family, like an old lady or something, and I was like, okay. And then I just kind of
Okay.
like slipped into a room and I was like, yep, I'm a patient. And so a nurse comes by and they're like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm all right. And I'm like,
Okay.
yes, I made it. And then that's when I got distracted with my Prismacolors. Although I did briefly talk to a few other patients in there and ask them what was going on. And I did spend a lot of time just kind of like watching what was going on because I didn't want to like leave my room or do something suspicious that would make them be like, hold on a second, this person wasn't here like a few minutes ago. I was really surprised that they didn't notice I was there. And I was also
Yeah.
surprised that there was an empty room for me to hide in. And the weirdest thing is that it seemed like my room. And I feel like that has a little bit of significance because I felt like I was supposed to be there.
I'm sure it does. I hate to slow you down a little bit, but I do have to go back to the just kind of one at a time chronologically. I'm trying to get my own mental image of what's happening so I can hopefully be useful to you. Yeah, no, just the idea of so you left and then you came back into the building. And I think originally you described, say, coming in through the triage area. So this was at first you're entering the building through the employee entrance, and now you're very specifically entering through the patient portal, through the entrance patients use to get admitted.
Yes.
Okay.
The garage is on the right, and the triage is on the left. So the triage is kind of like on the side of the building, and then the employee entrance in the garage is kind of like on the right in the front.
Okay, good deal. And you specifically remember kind of getting in line to wait your turn behind a family with a little old lady?
Oh, no. There was no line. I didn't actually get triage. I kind of just like went in, and then they were going in to visit or something.
Okay, so you just happened to be present at the same time that some other folks were in the lobby, so to speak?
Well, I waited for somebody to come along. Like, there were people there, but I kind of waited because it wasn't really in the lobby that I went into the room. Like, you know, because it's kind of like you go up and then you got your doors, your locked doors, and your hallways and stuff. And I was just kind of meandering and waiting for somebody to go into one of those rooms, those locked hallways.
So you didn't actually say get admitted. The process was in your dream. You just moved into the building. You were already snuck in at that point. Okay.
Deliberately snuck in. I was like, nobody's gonna catch me. I'm gonna be behind this person, and it was very much sneaking in. I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. But I snuck in.
So you snuck into locked interior, and then one of the things you did to say conceal yourself was put on a patient robe to blend in.
You know, it's funny because I thought about that in my dream. I thought about what I was wearing, but you know, usually people just wear they just were wearing mostly plain clothes. I was kind of like in like slouchy clothing, so it wasn't too. It was something I thought about kind of before I went, if you know what I mean. Like it's something I was kind of like, well, I'm gonna dress like a patient instead of just some.
So part
instead
of
dressing like fancy or something like that.
Part of your plan was to approach this already in character, so to speak.
Yes.
But you didn't actually put on the robe, or you just thought about doing it?
I might have done it once I actually got there and needed to like change my clothes. I don't think I.
Okay.
I did. Maybe I did put on a robe. Did I say put on a robe? That might. Then I might.
It kind of popped out. Yeah, it may be accurate or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I put one on at one point, but only once I did have to change my clothes.
Okay.
Because I did like
And you said you were approached by a nurse who asked if you were okay.
Yeah, and I was by my bed now, and there
Is that the next thing that happened
actually.
chronologically, or are we kind of jumping around?
No, that's chronological.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't have even changed by that point. I probably I probably messed that up in my first telling of it, but that's I actually. Now that I think about it, that was on my mind when I was in there. I was like, oh, am I gonna have to? It was something I was thinking about when I was in the dream of whether or not I should put on a robe or something, but I don't think I actually did until later. But I think that was okay.
Okay,
because she was just kind of doing rounds.
So then she, when you had that interaction with her, you were already at the room that felt like it was your room?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was weird because as soon as I was there, I was like, oh, this is my stuff. Even though I had no reason to think that, really. But that's what I thought. And it was like, where are my Prismacolors?
So you had the experience that the Prismacolor pens were missing before or after the nurse came to ask if you were okay?
Definitely after. Because there was stuff that happened in between then and there. Actually, I'm kind of a liar because I spent a considerable amount of time in there like talking to talking to the other people that were in there to try to find my friend and to find out what was going on, and to the person that was in the room with me, because when I came into the room there was nobody in there, but there was another bed in the room. So the person that was staying in that other bed came in, and so I was talking to them.
So that happened after you had spent some time roaming through the hallways, searching for your friend and asking other people if they'd seen them?
Uh, well, I wouldn't say I was roaming through the hallways. I would have been more so catching people nearby and like sparking up a conversation with them, because I didn't really want to leave my room in case more staff members saw me and were gonna be like, I don't recognize this person. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So I was kind of trying to stay in my room so that I didn't get spotted too much
Gotcha.
by people,
So chronologically,
and I
you
was trying to
you
keep it low key.
snuck in and found the room immediately before you started to range out a little bit and ask around?
Yeah,
Okay.
I first like basically settled myself in and like like a had a place to hide, essentially, a place to have a cover of sorts, and to be like, yep, I'm a patient here. This is my patient room.
Gotcha.
It was the funniest thing that it was like an empty bed. That was a significant part of it, because that it surprised me. I was like, right, well, I'm just gonna walk into here, and I was kind of expecting somebody to come along and claim it, but they never did.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the interactions with the other people? What you asked them, how they responded to
Um,
questions?
I'd be like, have you seen somebody like this? Like, have you ever heard something about this person? Seen this person around? Like, person that looks like this? What I recall from those conversations is that they weren't helpful. And I
Okay.
couldn't, nobody really knew anything. I had the idea that was basically a lost cause.
Okay. And then at that point, maybe the next thing you remember, you're back in your room, and you had that kind of epiphany. This nobody knows anything. I'm wasting my time. It's a lost cause. At this point, I've exhausted the ability to keep searching because nobody knows anything. I'm at a dead end. So you go back to the room, and that's when you discover the pens are missing, or the nurse comes to talk to you first.
No, I mean, the nurse had already talked to me. The nurse talking to me was one of the earlier things that happened. Like when I was still alone in the room, I think the nurse
Okay,
even talked to me, or maybe the person just got there or something. But I didn't I didn't really decide to stop looking for her so much as I got distracted by noticing that
gotcha.
my Prismacolors were missing.
Do you remember anything significant about your interaction with the nurse, or just anything at all? How
I
did that
was
play
just
out?
surprised how lackadaisical she was. She was just like she did not pick up on the fact that I was not a patient. But I was just like, well, that's it. I guess, we made it. We made it, boys. I'm here now.
Gotcha.
And that's really all I thought about it. They're like, yeah, how are you doing? I don't even know if they were like, are you okay? But they were checking up on me, like doing their like 15-minute thing, their
Gotcha.
little
Yeah.
15-minute scenario.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And then after that you rearranged about, and then at some point during this search you got the feeling that it was a lost cause, and then almost, maybe not almost immediately, but following that experience, the realization that your pens were missing took over your focus.
Yes. And
Okay.
also, the important thing to note is that they are not pens, they are colored pencils, and they come in like this metal container. I had them in real life, and those are the pencils that I use. And when people mess with them, it makes me angry because
Gotcha.
I like to keep them all in one place, and they're old. They were my dad's, and they come in this cool metal container. So I had them down by my bed, and I'm like, bro, there's pencils all over here, but they're all Laurenton, Crayola, nothing. They're these are not my pencil leads, bro. And that I just started looking for them under the bed, which is actually a common theme. And that's like when things started to devolve into the family house, because I spent a lot of time in my dreams looking for things that I can't find. And that was like that. So I got very distracted by doing that, and that's when it like the place kind of just like gradually changed. like I wouldn't say like I watched it change, but like in my perception of it, it gradually changed because
Yeah.
I was at my bed in this hospital, and then I was at my bed in the family house, looking underneath it and looking around. And I went around to other beds in the hospital, but that's kind of what I was doing, and that's what it like default to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So the next transition in the dream was you're searching for these special pencils under a bed, and you suddenly realize the bed you're looking under is in your family home. You're no longer in the hospital.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was definitely cognizant of the fact that I had not been successful saving my friend. I was like, oh, well, I'm here now.
And you said, the way you described, you said, well, I'm here now. There was kind of a feeling of resignation of like letting it go. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Because the dream, like, it did change really fast from that point on.
Okay. Where were we at there? And you said there were there were people there, and the sense of these people was that they were your family, but they were not. When you look at them in your mind's eye now, looking back on it, it's not identifiably any current family members.
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of people there too. There usually aren't people there, so it was interesting. Like people that could have been there. There's people that just like more people than would ever be there, really.
When you think of it, did it feel like the internal space was crowded by too many people? Is that the feeling?
Yeah, you could say that. There was a lot of hustle and bustle of people just doing things, and I was doing things like I was going around, but I wasn't really doing that.
Were you?
I was kind of just like walking around and watching everybody else do things.
Yeah. At this point now, were you still looking for the pencils, or that had been left in the past? Now that you've moved on in the dream.
You know what? I might have been looking for pencils for a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I got distracted from that really quickly.
Okay. And did you said the folks, the crowd, kind of crowded or excessive number of people that would not typically be there were all busy doing their own thing, hustle and bustle. Did you get a chance of a sense of what they were doing? You said it was mundane, but what were their tasks?
They're like cooking food, getting beverages, getting food. It was mostly food centric, like moving stuff in and out of the house, like going back and forth, going outside, going inside.
Do you remember what items?
Anxiety.
Do you remember what items they might have been moving in or out of the house?
Nah. I honestly don't remember that much about what they were doing at all. But I do remember feeling like I wasn't doing very much work compared to them.
Okay.
And I did go outside to do some stuff in the yard, and I think it had to do with bolstering the fence. To be fair, that's something I've been thinking about for already, like in real life, is bolstering the fence of the family home. So it probably just had whatever to do with that.
That feels like a productive task from your real life.
Yeah. But basically what happened was that since I was going in and out of the house, I accidentally locked my baby cousin out of the house, and I was just sure that I had done it and that they were just gone now. So like they realized that they were gone. I didn't say anything. Like they didn't know anything, but I felt really guilty, and I was just like,
you said this was
I lost the other one, so
this person in your dream you identified as your baby cousin?
Yes.
And when you say baby, you mean like 2, 3 years old, 5, 6, 10?
Like 2, 3.
2.
Yeah, like really little. The one I lost in the dream before, though, would have been more like 7.
Okay.
Maybe like 6 or 7.
Sure. So there was some realization suddenly that in an attempt to match the productivity level, so to speak, of the other people, you made this mistake where you shut the door and it locked this child outside, and then when you went
they just wandered off.
that wandered off. And when you went to look, they were gone.
Yeah. And this is up where in the wild area, which is like a distinct part of my dream too, but you just know that when you go out there, some shit goes down. Like sometimes there's space battles, so you don't want to be losing kids out there. And it's just
Sure.
like, yeah, they're probably
You said this
gone.
in the wild. Does this relate to that, the field path, forest, trees, or is it a completely different feeling? Just outside the house is a danger area?
They're different. Yeah,
Okay.
because the path doesn't lead to the wild as much as it leads to like that cliff and also the field where stuff happens like that. And that's not really the wilds. That's like that's a field. And you know, there are some wilds on the edge of that, but it's not really the same because the wilds are like a place and they're
Yeah, I hear the
they got a
capitalization of
different-
the wilds in your voice. I hear
yeah,
it.
it's like a place. It's and it's by the family home. It's not so much in the city area.
Okay.
And it's like it's pretty yeah. You know, there's some little differences in that place, but they stay the same in a lot of the dreams. It's kind of funny.
Okay. And the child went missing. Did any of the other people have a reaction to the child going missing? Or only you were aware of it? Or
it took them a while to notice. I might have been the first one that noticed, so they caught on pretty quickly. The child wasn't there.
And what did they do? How did they
I was
respond to
just
that?
kind of like, people went outside looking, and I kind of just like went on looking with them outside, and we were just kind of out there looking. They were not happy. They were pretty much what you'd expect for a parent losing a child.
They were specifically
wild, like in the wilderness.
They were specifically distraught and frantic, or were they angry at you because they knew you had done it? How did that play out?
Oh no, they didn't know anything. I was just like kind of like, and I mean honestly, I wasn't even like I couldn't even remember locking the kid out, but I was just sure that I did it. I know, but obviously nobody else would have even thought that necessarily. So they were just like, "Oh my god, the child's gone. How did this happen?"
Okay.
They were trying to figure out how it happened, which was making me kind of like.
And you never told them that you did it?
No.
Okay.
I was thinking about it though. The dream was probably going to lead up to that, but I don't remember doing that at all.
Maybe so. Yeah. So at some point, it transitioned. The search concluded. They never found the kid, but people moved on. You moved on to a different part of the dream. Now you're over in your garden. How did that transition happen? Yeah.
Well, actually, I was kind of talking about the garden. I was kind of referencing like being out there and working like with the fence because it was kind of like in that area. But actually, like after looking for the kid, I just woke up. Like there wasn't really anything after that.
That was kind of the end
last
of the
thing I
dream.
remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, searching for the kid was part of the end of the dream. Gotcha.
Well,
but there was the garden and the dog.
It was actually more the parent of the kid being like real upset. That was the end of the dream. I kind of was like searching, and then we came back inside, and it was just like I was just kind of like there, like. And yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay, I don't know if it's too significant to go back to the garden thing. Like that's just part of where you were looking, or that's the productive thing you were seeking to do when the child got locked out. Was I better go fix that fence, so I'm going to go into the garden, and you realized, oh no, in my comings and goings, I made this mistake and lost the kid.
I was partially also remembering the garden from the earlier in the dream because there was also some gardening stuff like when I was fixing the fence. So I was looking at the garden, and it wasn't the same that I was looking at earlier in the dream, but I spent a considerably longer amount of time earlier in the dream actually looking at the plants in the garden that I had in my actual house.
Okay. I think, and then that brings us back to the end. So I've got like quite a bit of stuff here, like 2 pages for the first part and like 4 pages for the second pass. No, there's a lot. Don't choke. This is just me. I write in huge chicken scratchy letters that I can hold it up to the camera. No one's going to be able to read that because it's backwards, but also it's just incomprehensible. It's I don't even have to write in code. It's just chicken scratch. No one can read it anyway. Oh,
confidentiality.
I'm having the worst time tearing things straight. It drives me nuts. I'm gonna throw this whole pad away. Screw you.
I'm not good at that either, honestly.
I know. It makes me very happy. The first one, Oh, look at that bright, beautiful line. The rest of them, not so much. Oh, drives me crazy. Anyway, not gonna let my quasi OCD get the better of me. So we've been through it once. I listened, and we've been through it again. You answered questions. Before I get to say maybe starting to make suggestions or make my own connections, I like to ask people, having been through that process that we just did you have any eureka moments? Did you have any things where you're like, oh, okay, I see that, and you put them together and it makes something? Did you get a sense of that anywhere through that process? Anything stand out to you?
Well, kind of no, kind of yes, because I mean, not
Okay.
necessarily while talking about it right now, because I thought about the dream before, and I told somebody else about the dream because I just tell people about it, and like
Well,
while I was thinking about it initially, like there are definitely things that I can connect it to in real life, and I'm like, yeah,
okay,
like you can kind of just like feel the connection between the things,
for
but no.
sure. And that's a great place to start. If you've already had some ideas, that's probably relevant to something. So we should start there. What stands out to you? What connections have you already drawn?
Well, I have had to try to rescue my friend from an institution before, and it was a little bit traumatic for everybody involved. So that's probably part of it. I didn't sneak in though, but they they locked her up in there and didn't like fulfill any rights of hers at all. Like she wasn't able to contact her family or lawyer. Nobody knew where she went. The police kind of just like took her, and then she was gone, and she was in seclusion for a week
Wow.
straight. So that's like no, she wasn't allowed to see anybody or read a book or talk to anybody on a phone or like do anything. And she was left there to like poop herself and not have any changes of clothes because the security wasn't coming back a lot. And so like we didn't know any of this until, well, that's not true because this has happened to her. That happened to her before, and
Yeah.
so we knew kind of when that happened again that, but just for longer, that it was just kind of like the same but longer. But she's like, she has been psychotic without being violent, with increasing violence like every time she gets re-traumatized by being locked into her room for days on end. So we're not friends anymore because she attacked my friend and
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
stay around,
That's
and
rough.
it was a whole thing, and like exposing everybody to coronavirus because she just like wouldn't stay home, that kind of thing, and it was
Yeah.
just like,
That's a huge
yeah,
problem. What to do with
so
folks that are not in control of their own behavior because they may pose a risk to themselves or others, but at the same time, you don't want the solution to pose a risk to them either. And you're trying to balance
yeah.
that out. And yeah, I'd say, that specific description, locking someone in a room for a week, doesn't seem very beneficial.
She was a lot different after that.
Yeah.
That changed her. It gave her PTSD. I'm 100% certain of it because it was terrifying.
Well, it
And
changed you too because you're
um,
dealing with the fallout and trying to maintain a relationship with this person who's decompensating. Yeah, so that would have a
yeah.
big. What? How do you relate that to the dream beyond just that specific element of
Oh, well,
entering a facility to save a friend? Do you think there's more to it than that?
um,
There may or may not be.
Well, the funny thing was is that they had a bed ready for me. It kind of made me my dream self feel like, there's a bed out here already. That's cheeky. That's I like, but I kind of didn't. That wasn't like a eureka moment per se, but I definitely took note of that.
Yeah. What
It's
what
just like,
what do you make of that in terms of, so like two possibilities jump into my mind. One is that a part of you thinks you could use some help in that metaphorical sense, and another part of you could be fearing that someone thinks you're unstable. So you have a bed ready for you in your dream because you need it, or you're worried someone else is going to get a bed ready for you because they think you need it. Does that make sense? Does that resonate at all?
yeah, somewhat. It's like I definitely need psychiatric help, but I got an appointment now, so that's exciting. But
Yeah, that's
it's
good.
like it's it was also kind of like surprised because they're usually pretty crowded in there, so I didn't think they would have any empty.
Gotcha.
It was just like a lot of. It was just
It does feel important to me that it was like it was ready for you. It was saved. It was reserved. The place was
yeah. It
there.
was
Yeah.
the weirdest thing is that it might not have even been reserved as much as it was almost like I had already been there and that my stuff was still there. if you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is funny because I do have familiarity with that place. Like specifically, we have like that one mental institution in our city that is literally like over 100 years old. So it's still built like it's literally the same as it was like back when it was basically a torture chamber jail area. And
Yeah.
it's just like it's something that anybody who's been inpatient is just familiar with, and the staff there just whack. It's whack as hell, man. It's just
Ah,
really whack. It's all whack. They break the law all the time, like for everybody. And I experienced that too personally, not to the same degree, obviously, but it's just like it's such a place. And anyway, that was on my mind because it makes me mad every time, and that's why I was sneaking in because I was like, I need to figure out what's going on for real this time.
yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, and a lot of these things are sometimes there are metaphors, and sometimes there are direct representations because these are specific things that you're processing. Um, so there's so many notes. I don't even know where to start half the time. I get lost in these things, and that's great. I love this feeling of being lost because then if I actually find my way, it's like the struggle made it better. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
It's true.
But
I'm not gonna lie, I love my own dreams. Like I love having them and I love like sussing them out because they tend to just there's just some it's just they hit man. So
yeah,
that's it.
yeah, I think I mean, it's my opinion, and I think it's true. But of course, I do. It's my opinion. The dreams are meaningful. That these are what our subconscious, so to speak, is trying to figure out, so it can be brought into the consciousness and made sense of.
Yeah.
So, what one?
It feels like dumping. Like it feels like like after you've had your day and you've had your ego and you've had your conscience, it goes like and just dumps it all out, and
Sure.
then you're like, huh.
Yeah, but it's also a selective dumping in a way. It's like it kind of outputs the highlights. It
it's like
outputs
a little brain goblins holding a colander under it and just like shaking it.
kind of sifting it out. Yeah. And some of and actually that's not a bad metaphor for it too, because what it sifts out are, say, maybe the things that are less relevant, and what you're left with are the larger chunks that aren't going to fit through the holes in the colander. They're the things that remain after you've sifted out. That's a great metaphor.
The funny thing is, though, I think that I feel like the things that happen in my dreams like contain like, and we were kind of talking about this, but I can like I know that there's a lot of thoughts that happened during that dream that were completely irrelevant to the dream. And we're just
Maybe.
like really random like dream thoughts that I've had. And I think a lot of it happens in that form as well. And a lot of those things are less memorable unless they're like attached to the actual experience that I've had in the dream. But sometimes I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was thinking about stuff.
That's what we're looking for. Those moments of you can like feel it in your chest. It's almost a visceral, physical feeling of importance, of me. It's like a spider sense. I think of it that way. It's something so esoteric you can't describe the feeling, but you know when it happens. You know what it is. And part of my process is getting at those moments, but also looking at overarching themes. You spend a lot of time in this dream searching. You were looking for something. So that's a theme that seems to run through the whole dream. What do you think of that?
I think that's accurate. Well, I think the biggest theme, personally, like for it, and this like includes searching because it's kind of all a part of the same thing. Is like being stuck and wasting time, which is kind of how I feel in my real life all the time. And so I spend a lot of times in my dream just kind of like, and I think that's what it feels like when the dreams are recurring, is like being stuck and wasting time. Like I'm just wasting time searching for things. I get distracted a lot,
Sure.
and I'm like, I end up searching for things, and that happens a lot in my dreams. And it's just like this constant like flitting back and forth between like wanting to participate in what's happening and being completely like drawn into these like weird little like side quests that don't mean anything. But
Yeah.
it's like that's what my real life is like.
And maybe they do, and maybe they don't. That's an interesting thing. You do, without being judgmental, like I say, you do seem a little distractible. You seem a little disorganized in some of your thoughts, and that's okay. Like different things appear to you and pop up as more significant suddenly, and draws your attention, and that's fine. That's just who you are. So, but you're also seeing
I'm really
that
not a linear thinker.
Yeah, and that's also what you're seeing reflected in your dreams. So that's just consistent with your personality. That's a good thing to be able to say, okay, this is kind of reflective of your overall process.
Yeah.
And the searching thing is, you're looking for, first it's food. And food. I'm not going to do the dream encyclopedia thing where food means something specific, but it often can be, the hunger. And the hunger is not, and it's not necessarily concrete like, you're not hungry in your sleep necessarily, or if you are, you're not aware of it because we're disconnected from that. So it's not like you went to bed hungry and you dreamt about food. Can work that way. Doesn't usually work that way, but it's usually food would say be a metaphor for taking in something necessary, consuming something sustaining. Hunger is a desire that needs to be satisfied. So there's this search for food, the search for your friends, the search for the kid, the search for the pencils. There's missing things and you're trying to find them. And one of those things is your brain's picking all these different representations of missing elements. You need food, you need friendship, you need these different things. Where would you go with kind of that line of thought?
I'd say that's accurate because it's all about looking. Like the finding's not as important.
You didn't tend to find what you were looking for.
I didn't. No, I never did. And food especially is kind of funny. I dream about looking for food a lot because it's just one of those things I lament about too, just constantly, because I'm like, really, am I gonna have to just do this and look for every meal that I have to eat forever? It feels like such an annoying burden. Yeah. And so that definitely translates to my dreams and like that feeling of like just not wanting to have to deal with stuff. But I was like, I was a little bit frustrated that to look for food in my dreams. I was like, come on, like I was hungry, really, really hungry, but I wasn't craving anything. So it was like,
And it is interesting that, if we start kind of going down that road of let's examine the theme of searching, the first thing you found was something to satisfy the hunger, but it was not, how did you describe it? It was not what you were looking for. It was not actually satisfying. I'm trying to look, it was just about getting it is kind of how you phrased it. Yeah. You were looking for something, almost whatever you could find, something cheap, something functional, get the job done, not too unhealthy, and
something that wouldn't give me diarrhea. I was very much thinking that, just to be like completely transparent. I was like, I need something that's not going to make me sick right now to eat because I feel hungry.
And that's
like that.
That's something that you kind of consumes your waking life too. You have issues with, you need to eat specific types of food for your health.
Yeah. Okay. Except for when I don't, but it happens in my dreams too, and I'm like,
no, if that's something you are living with in your daily life, it's going to show up in your dreams, and especially if it's kind of that important. Like you got to eat 2-3 times a day, sometimes 6 times a day, depending on how your diet is. Not yours, but anybody's. And the more restrictions and the more dire the consequences, the more mental energy gets focused on that. And it's like, it just becomes, all consuming. It's like, God, and then annoying. Do I really have to think of this every day, all day for the rest of my life? And of course, that's going to show up in the dreams. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Like that resentment almost towards a commitment to living, honestly, which is a sad way to put it, but absolutely accurate in terms of how I think about it. Like,
yeah. Something that might be useful is maybe getting a little more organized about the food thing so you can think about it less. If you create systems, patterns that are automatic, you could put that on a back burner. Something to think about. I try not to dispense advice, but that's one idea that I think might be useful is, what if I always ate the same thing for breakfast and it was always the same thing and it's always something I know I can eat. And then I buy 100 of those and I put them in the fridge and I never have to think about it again. That's a possibility that's to simplify the process. I don't know what that is or what that looks like, or whether that eating the same thing for breakfast every day for 20 years would drive you mad. I like repetition.
Probably would.
Yeah, I like repetition. I have a feeling you like variety.
I do, and I honestly think that might be what's driving this whole like recurring dream thing, is because I have too much repetition in my life already, and I'm just feeling the strain of that.
Yeah.
And I think that might be part of what's drawing it out, and just making things more repetitive than they usually are.
And that
but
probably
maybe it's not too.
and that probably contributes to that, what you were talking about, the other theme of being stuck and wasting time is the repetition. It's like, this doesn't feel meaningful. This doesn't satisfy whatever I'm searching for.
Yeah. And to be fair, I had a lot of dreams like that when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
remember when I was a kid, I used to have these like time traveling dreams specifically where I'd have to go back and do everything again for years.
Huh.
And it was like,
Yeah.
That
we might have to, I mean, I'm fascinated by that too. I was just about to start asking questions like, I should probably stick to this dream because I'm going to get myself confused.
Well, I know why I felt that way as a child. It's just because I don't know, I had an issue in school with not being able to work ahead. Like I wasn't allowed to work ahead.
Oh.
And what would end up happening was that I would be sitting there and it would be like a long time. And I was like, 6, 7, 8, like I was young, like pretty young, pretty impressionable. And I would just be sitting there incredibly understimulated all day with the teacher trying to force my attention to them while they're explaining things to me that I don't necessarily need to be hearing, because I would kind of like basically just forced to sit there and do nothing a lot. And so that like really like that created this like sort of nightmare that I have where I would have to go back in time and like redo things, because I was actually forced to do that a lot as a child, and it drove me fucking crazy and it caused me to get depressed really, really early in my life.
For sure. Yeah, I didn't have a good school experience myself in terms of sitting still in a chair and listening and repeating things and doing all these repetitive tasks. It drove me crazy. Now I get that entirely. But in terms of we spoke briefly just in the very beginning of the second pass about the sense of motion of being on the skateboard or the scooter, and I kind of focused on that a little bit, of that feeling of whether you were propelling yourself or kind of being carried along. And that could relate to the thought that occurred to my mind was that you may have a sense of the path before you being externally controlled in a way, like you're being carried along to a destination that is determined by others, less so than under your own power because that's where you want to go. I don't know if that resonates at all.
Definitely something like that. Like the feeling was like encapsulated by just kind of like moseying along, like not going anywhere, if you know what I mean. Just like
coasting.
Just like just being, and not like it was a very like it's like, oh, well, I'm just doing this for no particular reason.
Yeah. And it's interesting that it happens at the beginning of the dream, as you say, leaving your neighborhood, leaving your home to begin this dream journey, is this sense of coasting along in a direction, kind of almost being carried that way. Not against your will, but not entirely under your own power, so to speak. I don't know if that...
Yeah.
But then that takes you past the neighborhood, and you see people just doing their regular things, and you see annoying kids, and you just kind of want out of there. You're like, this is not very interesting. This is not where I want to be. Did you have that sense of it? Like you wanted to leave, you wanted to go on that journey, so it took you straight to the path in the woods?
I was at that point, I was mostly just thinking, like, I was aware of my surroundings, but I was mostly just kind of thinking my own thoughts and just being, I was just like, I was there. I was kind of like, just looking at the people, thinking about what I was going to do when I got home, thinking about what I did before I left home, just thinking.
Occupied by your own thoughts. Okay.
Yeah.
That may be interesting too, is, while you're kind of on, say, autopilot, coasting and thinking your own thoughts, you end up in the path through the woods. And I think that's a significant metaphor, image type of thing too. Do you have some specific thoughts about that place and what it means to you?
Well, it is a trail I walk a lot in my dreams. And when I say a lot, like I really, like I mean like several times a week for over a year. I have no idea why these dreams are recurring so hard.
Sure.
But I walk it a lot. And the funny thing is because it just kind of goes where it goes. It almost doesn't even seem like a path. It kind of just seems like a place in its own right. You know what I mean?
Sure.
especially when the mushrooms grow there, because I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm gonna go to the path and pick the mushrooms, and that's what I kind of wanted to do.
That
So
was
maybe it was less about leaving, and it was more like, or maybe I was just like at the path, and I was like, ooh, I bet you there's mushrooms there. Yeah, that feels
okay.
more right.
Sure.
Like that.
So you're in the path and you're thinking you might find something desirable there. You might find something you would like to find on that path or along that path.
Very specifically mushrooms. There's also like a dude that passed me on that path at some point, but it wasn't really important.
In this dream?
Yeah. And it's like I'm actually usually afraid of dudes passing me on that path. I'm usually just like waiting for some dude to pass me on that path. But I mean, that's just pretty normal for me walking on any sort of path, so I just figured that was like kind of part of the whole deal, you know?
Sure. Well, you said you're normally afraid, but this time this person didn't feel threatening? Just passed you?
Mm, yeah. Like I was looking out for him, but I wasn't like there was nothing particularly weird about him. They used
Yeah.
some dark clothing, just walking along. He might have said hi to me.
You kept an eye on him, but you didn't get this sense of dread like he meant you harm. He was just passing through.
Yeah.
I think there's something to that as well. There's something so I wanted to get your thoughts first. There's great metaphors for, walking a path or the path to a goal or discoveries along a path. And I think there's something to that. There is like this, the first journey in the dream was getting out of your neighborhood, your family home, your comfort zone, or the starting place for you, going to the path through the woods or this path with trees, and the idea that the trees are kind of arching over the top, so it's shaded. It's an enclosed path. It's almost like a natural tunnel in a way that's taking you through to a destination.
At first, the path kind of just seemed like a really scary place. Like it seemed like somewhere
in previous
where I
dreams?
wasn't really gonna find out where it came. Yeah, like when I first started, but now like I'm like, oh, it's the path.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's probably much. So I was like, in this particular dream, I was feeling pretty comfortable about the path. I was like, this is my path.
By this point, you've walked the path so many times that it's become a comfortable place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something there. I'm getting a tickle of significance about this imagery.
It's probably just me being like, well, my life sucks because I'm too comfortable to change it. And that's probably what it's all about. Fetching my money.
I think walking this path is related to the idea of searching. It's like your brain is putting this image in there to say you have to go somewhere to find what you're looking for. You're not going to find it in your home, in your comfort zone, maybe in your familiar surroundings. You're going to have to go through a path in the woods and look outside what's beyond the path to get what you're looking for. Yeah, so something like that. I don't know if that makes sense to you or feels right.
Yeah, I don't know if I got to the end of the path of the stream, but yeah, I do. It does go. It is there. Nope, it's the funniest thing. It's probably the thing I traveled the most in my dreams.
Yeah, your brain's latched onto that imagery as something very important to journeying, to change, maybe to change is the word that comes to my mind. It's like because you change location by going from the beginning of a path to the end of a path, and it's a metaphor for the journey, so to speak, or the process of moving forward. So there's something there. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to put my words in your head, but I think it feels right to me.
Also, I prefer walking on paths than streets. So maybe that has something to do with it, because when I get to the path, I'm like, oh, I'm going to walk down this now. But every time I walk on a street, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I had to get somewhere.
And people who really
love walking downtown.
And people who really love driving would say their metaphor might be driving down a highway. That's the recurring theme for them. But for you, it's walking paths, because that's the imagery you prefer, the place that makes you feel good about walking that direction. Mm-hmm. Something like that.
I do drive in my dreams, but it's usually really unpleasant. And I drive in real life. Well, that's not always true. No, that is true.
Yeah.
Sometimes I drive drunk in my dreams, and that's not fun. I don't do that in real life. But it's not fun in my dreams, and I hit a lot of snowbanks and skid around a lot. But I always get where I'm going, and I very rarely have an accident, thankfully.
That's good. Well, if you're driving in snow, there's going to be slipping and sliding. Nothing you can do about that. I always recommend
Yeah.
if you're living in those kind of environments, get that four-wheel drive truck
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
I
That is
usually am
advice, but
driving the truck in my dreams,
yeah.
the big like a Chevy Silverado, because that's what I drive in real life, and I
Okay.
drive in my dreams.
Yeah. A lot of the imagery in our dreams is specific, which was also why, I mean, we come into the building. It's, and I think it's interesting that it represents many kinds of buildings. So there's like and kind of an archetypal sense to it of, um, I don't know how you would describe it, of like these different places. You've got hospital, school. It's been many different types of places in your dream, but it's always some kind of institution, so to speak. Does that make sense? The school is an
Yeah,
institution. Hospitals are an
the school
institution.
is really special though, because when I go to the school, I mean, I didn't graduate high school, so the school has some significance because it's always like a place. It's a place I didn't return to, and it's a place that like my brain's stuck on a lot.
Yeah.
But the fun thing about the school is that it kind of has this trope that goes along with it, and that's the field trip. That sometimes I go in my dreams, and that's a very unique thing because you don't really know where you're gonna go. And sometimes I take train, sometimes we go to different countries. One time, when I was going to school, I was being told that we were signing up for a prestigious space program, and I got into this room, and they were like, they basically gave this spiel, and they were like, so you guys are young cadets, like you're gonna go out and you're gonna do great things for humanity. And this is like when I realized that they were just sending us off onto this little rock, like just as kids, because we were expendable, and they were just gonna like go, and they're being like, we're sending these kids to space and it's gonna be great. And so we arrive on this little rock, and it's this old for some reason it's just this like really ancient settlement, not necessarily distinctly human, but there are like, it's just like run down. And this is like, this specific little planet is somewhere where I've gone to like maybe 2 or 3 times in my dreams. It's one of the most interesting like field trip things that has happened. It's
Huh.
not the same, but it does happen sometimes, and it's really scary, and the gravity's really low, but it's really cool.
Well, that's kind of fun when you can like jump and fly through the air. I love playing video games with low gravity effects. That's fun.
Whenever I go lucid, I do have a tendency to try to fly because that's what you want to do when you're lucid.
Hell yeah.
Um,
If I
there's
could
a
like
funny
plug in
trope,
Matrix style and fly, I'd do it right now. Done.
right?
Yeah.
There's a funny thing too. Like it's not quite flying. There's something happens in like the physics in some of my dreams where it's like lower gravity where you go like ping, 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 like off the walls, and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
a thing.
Well, speaking of physics, that was you. Once you entered the building, you came in through the employee entrance, and what you were doing was working in this. So if this building represents the institution or the idea of institutions, you came in as a part of the process, like rather than separate from the process. And what you were doing was cleaning rooms with other coworkers, and there was this weird gravity physics. That's what brought me back around to it. Um, the idea of objects bouncing off the walls, things being chaotic.
Yeah, it's just because it makes it a pain in the ass to clean up. And I always think to myself, it's funny because this is not like, it's not something that happens in real life, but I just like assume in my dreams because people party too hard in there. I was like, man, these people party way too hard in here. It makes it such an annoyance to clean up. But that's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah. So you're having the experience of other people's choices or behaviors interfering with your ability to get the job done. Does that resonate?
yeah,
Does that link up with
it's
your
nasty.
personal life? Do you kind of feel like other people's problems are making your life complicated in a way?
Yeah, because I'm not super smart at telling people to shut up about their problems when it's
Oh,
like causing me a hard time. It's like I'm the kind of person that my brain automatically wants to distract from my entire life with other people's entire lives. So
yeah.
I'm really prone to that kind of codependence, and it's really not cool. So
That's a
I
good thing
get
to
really,
know.
really
Yeah. That understanding is an extremely important place to start. So maybe this particular element of the dream is trying to remind you of that a little bit, saying, you've got your own work to do. And if, and actually what happened was you left, you said, I'm not dealing
yeah,
with this.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's very important. It's your brain saying, maybe you need to set some boundaries in real life. What do you think?
I love to deal with my friends' problems. I
Yeah.
left my work to go help my friend, which is also funny.
No, that is true. Yeah. So even in your attempt to solve one problem of other people's mess annoying you, you put that down, but then you're like, I'm going to focus on someone else. Oh no, maybe not the best choice, but it gave you a new mission. I mean, there's something satisfying and meaningful to being of use to other people.
Yeah.
And that's one of our greatest satisfactions in life in general is like, imagine you're out in the woods. What are you going to do? You're going to build something. Sure. And you look at it and you enjoy it. But what does it mean? If you're not doing something in relation to other people, it doesn't feel as meaningful.
Yeah. And it's hard. Like I got depression too, and not a lot of things actually stimulate my brain. So it kind of like end up stuck into this situation where like that is just the thing that is most available to stimulate my brain. Like it's it's a right, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's just like that habit and that pattern but also the availability of stimulation that makes it difficult to escape from. It's like
it can be. I mean, that's the first thing that came to mind is Twitter. The idea of people going back there for dopamine hits and there's constant engagement. You just keep scrolling. There's a million people saying all kinds of things. A lot of people get trapped into that and can't put it down or have overwhelming urges to look for the next thing. And then they waste all their time and they're like, what did I do with my day? What happened? So there's something to that too. Not to get down on social media. It's got its purposes and whatnot, but most things are a matter of like balance, degree, moderation in all things, you know?
Yeah.
So that's where I was going with that, is that it's good to help people and it's meaningful to help people and it's satisfying and it should be. And you got to do it in the right proportion to taking care of yourself.
I dated this guy back in last year, and his house was really messy. It was not smart to be dating this man. I'm young, like I'm 21, and this person's 28 now. He's just like a man, like an alcoholic.
Oh.
And I thought things were going well, you know. I thought he liked me and stuff like that. And I was staying over, and I was like, like, we should. Do you want any help to clean this up tomorrow? Like, I'll bring the vacuum cleaner over. We'll clean it up. And I ended up cleaning his whole house, and then he stole my vacuum cleaner, and that still plagues me daily to this day. And I'm not good at setting boundaries.
Well, no, and there was actually an element to the dream where you said you were in a department store, but there were also like construction supplies being sold there, and you were looking around for food, but also you wanted to buy a rug and a vacuum cleaner. Is that?
Yeah, and it's also because like I think about vacuum clean. This is a funny thing too, because it's just like that's exposing, because I think about vacuum cleaners because my friends broke their vacuum cleaner by vacuuming water, so I've been on the lookout for them on like the used websites for vacuum cleaners that people put up, but then it's not even for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's another distraction to occupy your mind, to take your worries off your own troubles and to get those the hits of satisfaction for doing something useful to someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you put those two situations side by side like that, though.
Yeah.
Because it's like, Emmy, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, this seems like a dream that's bringing a lot of these elements together of trying to help you kind of sort through what seemed to you right now to be the most important problems for you to address and resolve in some manner, or at least begin to walk the path through the forest to find an answer for how to figure these things out. What was I going to say? There was another. It is interesting that so you infiltrate the institution now through the patient side of things. You're no longer a part of it. Now you're an outsider coming at the institution to fix something on the inside, because you couldn't do it as a part of it, but you could maybe do it as an outsider. And what you were going to do was be useful to someone else. So that's a driving force in your life. Um,
This is true. Although it's 50-50 when I'm in the hospital because sometimes I'm a patient, sometimes I'm a nurse, and sometimes I'm both. And it gets
sure.
confusing.
Yes, and no, that very much changes because you are in real life. I mean, we are all both. We are these dualities. We are the helper and the helped, and we identify with or take on
That's
more
true.
responsibilities in those roles based on situation. But you did your best to be useful, say in seeking to help a friend, and you couldn't find them. You couldn't accomplish that specific mission, and then once you realized that it wasn't working, your focus shifted to something personal that was lost. So it went from, I'm going to help other people, to, wait a minute, I have my own problems. I'm going to focus on this now. And that search then took you home, where you were dealing with the hustle and bustle of a family situation. When you kind of string those together, what comes to mind?
That's true because it kind of the like the flow of distraction makes sense when you put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, you could see how it would go like back around that way. But yeah, that's interesting. The funny thing is that a lot of my personal issues in the dream are just like petty problems, whereas everyone else's issues are like like a big
Yeah.
thing. But I mean, I participate in all of them, so I guess it doesn't really matter too much. But.
Well, that's a good insight too. I mean, and there is kind of a progression too of like searching to satisfy your hunger, whatever it is, and it's represented by food in the dream, and walking a path to get there. It takes you to the strip mall, and you find something nourishing but not satisfying, so to speak. And so then you move on to trying to maybe find meaning or in a work scenario, and it's just annoying, and it's other people's problems making a mess, and you don't like your coworkers. Now you're moving on to searching for a friend to be of use to them, and then that transitions into searching for something personal to you as meaningful, and then that transitions into searching for a missing child, and that's much more important. It's like, wait a minute, priorities, all of that other stuff doesn't even mean anything. There's a missing kid, and it's also significant
This
to
is true,
me
but I
that,
probably spent the least amount of time searching for the missing kid.
well, there's
I
a
was
good
just
chance
like,
that
I was
was,
pretty sure they were dead. I was like, I'm pretty sure they're gone now. So
yeah, no, I was going to
it
get to
was
that too.
like,
Is you had the sense of, it's my fault that they're missing. I can't even tell people because they're going to be mad, and the consequences are so dire. They're gone. They're not coming back. They're probably dead. This is a mistake that cannot be undone, and that it's not.
not only that, I was like, I literally lost their child like last week. And I did it again. So now they don't even have two children anymore. They don't even have one kid. They have zero. They're both gone.
So the dream didn't reset. It picked up where it left off. Oh, second child
Yeah.
gone. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're probably really hard.
Literally.
You're probably really hard on yourself about your personal mistakes, especially when they hurt other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest, and that's not surprising to me that that was the shortest part of the dream, and you woke up right afterwards. Like
I was probably too stressed. I
that
would
hits so
probably just
close
like
to home.
wake.
You needed to get out of it. You woke yourself up.
Yeah.
You're like, I can't. That's no, I can't do that.
The funny thing is, I can feel like the rise of anxiety in my dreams that will cause me to wake up.
Okay.
However, there have been times where a dream has been too scary that it made me lucid, and I've tried to wake up, and it usually works. But there was this one time that it didn't work, and I was lucid, and I was trying to wake up, and I couldn't wake up, and it terrified the shit out of me because I was like, excuse me, this is not a dream. It felt like smacking your ass against a rubber wall and not going through. You know, it was
Huh.
like
Yeah.
and I was like, but I it also it might have been partially a natural conclusion, but my anxiety was definitely rising at that point of the dream. It was like, and usually when that happens, that's a good catalyst to wake up because I feel like you could like the heart palpitations, you know, like I could
Yeah.
feel like my heart racing and being like, it's not feeling too good about this. And it's just like all that excitement. It's just like it's just too much excitement.
For sure. Yeah. Too intense, and that's a lot of what we do in real life when things are intensely uncomfortable. I mean, specifically the idea of pain. You put your hand in something hot and you pull it back because that hurts, and I don't want that pain to continue. So waking up from a stressful, painful experience in a dream is very, very reasonable. You would expect that to happen. Yeah. I mean, I think we got into a lot of detail. Oh no, I did want to spend a little bit of time on the idea that you're desiring to repair a fence, and that is real in real life. So there's a reference to that. But
Yeah.
fences are boundaries, and you probably feel like your boundaries need some work. And so, even in your dreams, you're like, "Can we fix that fence a little? Can we give it some attention?" What do you think about that?
This is true. And it's also I don't know what I was doing. I think I was putting plastic up on it, but there's a lot of me thinking about plastic and thinking about putting that up on stuff. I've just been like making things lately, and I've been really thinking about that fence in particular because that house is in a very windy area and it causes the garden not to grow very well. So I've been like turning it over and over and over in my brain of like, how in the hell am I gonna block the wind from going in there? So I think it was like a little bit of that too.
Sure.
But it was also on the other side. So it was just like I think I was also just trying to get out of the way of everybody else. Just like,
Yeah.
you know,
But
it's my
that's also a
own.
powerful metaphor too. You have to put up a functional fence so that your garden can grow. In a sense, the
Yeah.
garden is you, or the fruits of your labor are need to be protected by those appropriate boundaries. So that's probably part of the imagery in your dream as well, and probably why it's on your mind in real life. Like if you didn't care about having something to show for your efforts, you wouldn't bother with the fence. I mean, there's a dozen projects I'm not doing outside because other things are more important to me right now, and that's representative of where my mind's at. So I think that's something significant. But also that in the dream that the child was lost to the wilds, and that's a specific area.
Yeah.
I think that
The
yeah,
wilds are a dangerous place. Sometimes the weirdest thing, this always happens, we end up having like wars with like people nearby in the wilds. Like we have to like go marching out over the marsh and like it's just a thing. It's not there's wild animals out there. Like I don't know. I feel like a dog. I would like my thought in the dream was like, yeah, a dog probably like it really was. I was just like, I don't
sure,
like they could have really just fallen in a hole, sunk into some mud. I don't know. Like it
yeah.
just
That
yeah. I was
the
like
amount of danger in the wilds is almost limitless, huh?
yeah. I
I think
was like
I think that place describes something very very important as well in your mind of this space outside of what is familiar, comfortable. It's wild. It's not controlled. It's not a contained area. And to me that
it's
feels
vague.
like challenging the unknown, the outside world, or the difficulty between negotiating what's inside of you and the dangers outside. I don't know if that's making sense. I think I'm onto something, but you probably have better words for it.
Yeah, and just like the I don't know, it's a complicated relationship with it, I suppose. But yeah, the wilds are kind of a funny thing because they're like I don't know. It's just a big, big space where a lot of things happen. But yeah, I'd say that's basically accurate.
Yeah, because yeah, it's
It's
just
great.
I love the metaphorical concept of the wilds because it's not just a place of unlimited potential danger. It's probably also a place maybe in your mind you've gone to retrieve important things or to challenge some situation and conquer it, succeed. Have you had those experiences?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it is looking for stuff out there and just going, like,
Yeah,
and uh, sometimes dying, sometimes drowning, sometimes getting stuck in a pond, like that kind of thing.
yeah,
But it's never forested. It's always like it's always a it's always a barren. It's not like which is honestly true to life because up by the family home it's a barren, but it's very like it's interesting because even in the places even like before that became like the norm and like kind of the what it would be like every time that I was in my dreams, like the place that I would be considering the wilds would have trees, but they'd kind of be like dead. and it was mostly grass. So it would always be kind of like this tawny color going on. You know what I mean?
Okay. And when you
It's
were
not
when you were younger, did you go out into this area in real life and have adventures and challenge dangers?
not really.
Okay.
Not like that. No. When I experienced well, I wasn't allowed to explore that much
You
as a
were told it
child,
was
but
dangerous out there and you weren't allowed to go there?
yeah.
Gotcha.
And but I would have done most of that kind of thing in the woods, probably,
Oh,
as a
fair enough.
kid.
Well, that makes sense too. Like we were talking about Freud earlier, and there are some things from your childhood, like if you're told, beware of this thing, and it's a big deal, do not ever go there. It would make your parents very angry to put yourself at risk by challenging these dangers that they told you to stay away from. That becomes a very strong symbolic image of dangerous places in general. So
Yeah,
it'll come back to you to represent that. Yeah.
that's probably true. I
Yeah.
was always like kind of afraid of sinking in a bog because that's like something that really happens.
That's legit.
Just like
It does. Kids disappear all the time. Yeah.
yeah,
Eaten
because
by a
it's like
dog, sink in a
they're just
bog.
everywhere, and you can't tell. Like you can't tell what is and
Oh, it
what isn't
seems like
water,
solid
and then
ground.
you can
Yeah,
lose your shoe.
for sure.
And it happens to me in my dreams too. But the funny thing is about the wilds is that there's often like little houses and lots of different things happen. Like there's not necessarily a common theme of it, but
Sure.
there's sometimes weird things. Just the weirdest things.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting idea too, that there's people who live in the wilds. How do they do that? And that's
There's not that many people. These houses are often dedicated to other things, like having certain things in them,
okay.
or sometimes even being a little bit haunted, but not really haunted. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
sometimes houses in dreams do things that things in real life don't do, and it's hard to describe because it barely
sure.
even exists on a three-dimensional plane. But you just know it's just happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Creepy houses.
Well, what do you think about this particular dream and our walk through our the ideas we've put together about it? You think we're missing something? You think there's chunks to, there's pieces of the puzzle to put back together? Or do you think we got a pretty good overview and theme, fairly good understanding of it? What do you think?
Yeah, seems like the course has been run over pretty good. It's like, yeah,
Okay.
things. I think we covered most ground. I think in it.
Yeah, if anything
Not
stands
really.
out to you and you're like, what does this mean? This is bothering me. I'd love to hear it. I'm not trying to rush you out the door, but this is a good time because we've kind of come back to the end of the dream on our third pass through. And now's the time to say, what are we missing? Anything? Maybe not, but maybe something stands out to you.
Hmm. Oh, one of the things where with the colored pencils is that I kind of didn't think that they were gone, but I didn't like the fact that they weren't all in the place I wanted them to be.
Yeah,
And that was the main issue.
for sure.
Because I wanted to be like, oh, well, I know where they are and they're there.
Yeah. And that goes back to, I think, the idea of searching for something missing, again, searching, missing objects, missing people, etc. And this is something extremely personal to you. And it's something it's kind of like having your shit together. It's like the
I get
reliability of something
anxious when my shit's
important.
not together.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When all of my objects are not in one place, I forget them, and I'm cognizant of that to the
Yeah.
point that I have extreme anxiety when I have to carry multiple things out of the house or into the house or
Yeah.
anywhere, and it's just like this whole thing.
It's like
But
they're
that's
going to
just me.
disappear. Yeah. And they may
I think it's an
disappear due to
OCD.
inattention. Yeah.
I've had I've had a diagnosis of that. It's not like the same that it used to be. So I used to have this like hypochondria thing going on where I would be genuinely convinced I was dying. Like I would be writing wills. I refused to eat salad for like a year because I thought I was gonna get food poisoning and die. It's like this
Wow.
whole
Yeah.
thing. But it's different now. But I think that's kind of like that's one of the bigger ways that it manifests is just like um being like fixated on like the groupings of things so things don't get lost, like things like
Yeah.
that, like frantically trying to overcompensate for
Yeah.
that level of disorganization with that obsessive side, you
That's
know?
exactly where I was going to go with that. I have a lot of routines in my life so what is OCD? It's basically behavioral anxiety management, broadly speaking. It's, you have these
Yeah,
feelings and
exactly.
you're trying to reduce that anxiety through specific behaviors. And a lot of it, and again, this is that spectrum idea of there is a need in the human condition for anxiety. It serves a purpose. Anxiety, fear, pain, these things.
That was one of the first most important things I ever learned about anxiety.
What's that?
Because I was a very anxious kid, and the fact that anxiety was necessary, and I could tell myself, like, this is a normal human emotion that I'm feeling, and it's attached to something. You know, like, just to know, like, hey, this is not an alien takeover, basically.
Yes.
This is you.
That is extremely important. Yeah, and the idea that because it is normal, it's not something we can do without. Like, I like to use the example. Have you heard of there are some children born without the ability to experience pain? Have you heard about that?
It's so interesting because it makes them not able to correctly assess danger, right? Like they basically go through their lives and
they're running around the backyard, they jump off something tall, they break their leg, they keep running, they don't even know it. And then they go show their mom, why is my foot lopsided? And she's like, oh my God, take them to the hospital, they get a cast. They have no idea. They're like la-di-da. And so if we lacked the ability to have anxiety or pain or fear, we would just die. It's that evolutionary thing bred into us for years to keep us alive, to focus our attention and get us out of danger. So what do you do with that? I was just going to say, what do you do with that is it's all about proportion. You know what? Paranoia is fear out of proportion to realistic danger. And then realistic danger is often a matter of opinion sometimes. But the same goes with anxiety. It's like, how much anxiety is too much? How dangerous is the situation? How potential is the outcome that you're worried about? So yeah, it's a lot of what we do is an organization helps, that creating these routines and structures that we can rely on, that it goes over into OCD when it's more dysfunctional, when it's like these routines are not serving a useful purpose. But I have a little red apple, and in that little red apple every fucking day goes my keys, my wallet, anything important that I'm going to need again tomorrow. It goes in the red apple. And when my wallet and my keys are not in the red apple, it's a problem. I need to go find them. That's my routine, and my anxiety type of stuff is linked to that. But go ahead.
I was thinking about like the behavioral thing, and the nice thing about the funny thing about OCD specifically is that like it can be amended behaviorally, but the funniest thing is like it's like a water balloon that if you like squish it in one side, it like pops out the other. So you just kind of gotta like.
It sure can be, yeah. Oh, that made me just think water. You mentioned, okay, going back to the garage and the mine, this deep shaft, and at the bottom of it was a theater and a waterfall, and there was someone there that filled water in a bucket from the waterfall. And the first thing that popped into my head around that was the idea of digging deep beneath the surface to find, and what's a theater? It's a place where you're shown images or there's information presented, usually of an entertainment value, but there's this waterfall, and there's the idea of taking someone collecting something from the waterfall. And this seems to me like, when I express it that way, what comes to mind?
The theater is funny.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of just there as happenstance in this dream, because the thing with the theater is that it's in the basement, and it's kind of like next to the mines, if you know what I mean, like below. And sometimes they have shows there. But in this stream, it was kind of just there because it's there, you know? Like, it was just there because it's a part of the mine. And sure. So
I think the important element was the waterfall and the collecting the bucket. Yeah.
Well, I was surprised we got down there and it's just as simple as filling a bucket, because usually there's some shit going on down there. So
yeah.
That needs to be resolved and like involves a bunch of navigation and issues that like it's hard because you go into these little tunnels in these little stairways and they all look the same, and that happens a lot in my dreams too. Yeah, I get lost in buildings a lot because they get all wonky. But that's like just a common thing that happens in my dreams. Like really, like, because then oh my god, my least favorite thing that happens, this happens a lot when I get lost in my dreams, but I'll be like walking up these stairs and then my feet fly up off the stairs and I'm like trying to keep going up the stairs, but I can only hold on to the railing. because my feet keep flying off, and it's so annoying. And that just happens a lot. But that didn't happen in this dream. It's just funny thing.
Yeah. It is interesting that the two things you did find in the dream were food, kind of at the very beginning, and then this bucket with the water collected from the waterfall. And water, it doesn't always mean the same thing again, but the idea of going down into a mine, which is where you dig to extract things of value, perhaps, or look beneath the surface to discover things, and you find a waterfall. And water, in this sense, is like there's just almost a never-ending supply of something useful in a way. And the idea that you would have someone with you who brought the necessary supplies to gather some of that useful thing, and that it seems so easy. It
was funny. I was just going with them.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Maybe that is representing some kind of a desire for not a guided tour exactly, but a guide or a partner or some facilitated process to get at something useful and be able to have them help you pull it out and take it back. I don't know if that's making sense.
Yeah, I could see how that would translate, definitely, because it was definitely out of place in that regard.
Yeah, and the idea that you didn't have the typical experience of being lost, maybe because you had a guide, you had someone with you to kind of take you where the waterfall was and get what you needed from the experience.
It was probably the only time in the dream that was actually working together with anybody else.
Yeah. And not just nearby while other people were busy and trying to maybe look busy out of obligation, or partner with people who were bad partners in the sense of the working in the hospital. Yeah, I feel like I need to sneeze. Oh, I hate that feeling. It's not going to happen. It won't go away. Okay, I'm going to live. Well, I think we did a pretty fantastic job of pulling. You remember like an hour ago when I was like, I don't know what to make of any of this. I don't know what's going to happen. And I was horribly confused. And I'm like, we got something. That blows my mind. I love it. I love it every time.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you feel satisfied with the process, we just gotta wrap it up and then hang out for a minute afterwards. And I'll talk to you, kind of a post interview debrief.
Sure.
Good deal. Yeah, it doesn't take long. Just a couple of minutes. I just don't like to hang up on people. It always feels weird. Thanks for coming. Click. Yeah. But I will say to everyone watching, hey, that's it. I think I hope you had fun, and I thank you for watching another episode of Dreamscapes. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and please also thank our friend Emmy for being here. And I will. Emmy, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good deal. All right, I'll kill it here, and we'll talk afterwards. See you, everybody.